This is Outnumbered. I'm Sandra Smith. Here today, Harris Faulkner, host of Kennedy on Fox Business Kennedy, also from FBN, co-host of After the Bell, Melissa Francis, and today's hashtag One Lucky Guy, Fox News digital politics editor and the co-host of I'll Tell You What, Chris Stirewalt, and he is outnumbered. You do that a bit better than me, sir.
I'll tell you what, I'm happy to be here.
Oh.
And I was just thinking that if they could see me at Gene Henry's filling station now, they would know that I had truly... No, that's closed. They closed that a long time ago.
They did? I just talked to Gene this morning.
You're going to go by and check in your deer from the fall hunt? Yep.
And you're a first-timer on the couch, by the way.
This is what I mean. Now I know I'm here. I have
Such a natural already, Chris.
Oats my goats.
Yeah. And he's the first one that ever made this face when they came into him, I think.
I love it.
All right, well,
like
we have
strangling himself in a horror movie.
Right. A lot to get to because there's just 22 days to go now till Election Day with just over 3 weeks until voters head to the polls. Donald Trump ramping up his claims of a rigged election. Over the weekend, the Republican nominee and his top surrogates saying the media working hand in hand with the Clinton campaign. Listen.
It looks to me like a rigged election. The election is being rigged by corrupt media pushing completely false allegations and outright lies in an effort to elect her president.
What he's talking about is that 80 to 85% of the media is against him. Look at the New York Times and you pick it up every morning. On the top of the paper, there are 3 stories that are anti-Trump. Some of them totally baseless, some of them silly. And then at the bottom, you get a little something about Wikileaks.
Well, I think that without the unending one-sided assault of the news media, Trump would be beating Hillary by 15 points. The news media's one-sidedness is the worst I've seen in my lifetime, and I'm old enough. That's a fairly long statement.
But Hillary's running mate, Tim Kaine, pushing back hard on the rigged election charges.
Donald Trump has kind of started to go wilder and wilder. I think after, by all accounts, losing the first 2 debates, he started to make wild claims, kind of scorched earth claims about the election being rigged, etc. We need to call on everybody to speak out about the fact that we run elections and we run them well here. We shouldn't be engaging in those scare tactics.
Scare tactics. All right, well, what do you make, Chris Stirewalt, of Trump's claims of this being a rigged election?
So there's 2 things. So there's the one part that any person can legitimately make and say that that there's a liberal bent to the press and that the coverage is unfair. Calling that rigged, I don't know that it requires a conspiracy to be rigged. It may just be the natural default setting of a lot of journalists or whatever. Okay, but that's a fine argument to have. Then there's a second thing, which is rigged election as in it's being stolen. And Trump is making, and his surrogates are making, these 2 claims contemporaneously. So they're happening at the same time. We say the election's rigged because the media is biased, but also they're saying the election is actually rigged in the sense that the votes will be stolen from his supporters. That's a different, more dangerous thing.
The second one, though, because Ed Henry made this point earlier, and I think this is what he's seeing. And like you said, rigged is not necessarily the right word, but he's talking about this. These were Ed Henry's numbers. So he says that in terms of registered voters down in Florida, for example, Republicans have registered 117 new voters. Democrats have registered 6,920, almost 9,000 new registered voters to the 117 coming out of the Republicans. Early ballots, 2-1 going to Democrats. Now, that could be good organization, Chris, right? Yep. That could be get out the vote.
Right.
I guess there could be fraud in there, but I don't think rigged. You wouldn't
do fraud there. That is no indication of fraud. No. I am from West by God, Virginia. I would take a back seat to no mammal on this earth in a belief that there are election fraud is committed. Yeah. It happens. I've covered it. I've seen it done. I've seen ballots destroyed. I've seen votes bought. It happens.
This is organization, what I'm talking about.
But you have to be close to get the election stolen. So as Trump talks about the precondition, which is that the media is biased against him and that's why he's trailing, that's one thing. It's different than if you say, and they're going to steal it from you. If you're down 11 points in Pennsylvania, they ain't stealing nothing from you.
Well, and what you're talking about, too, is kind of what we saw in Florida with hanging chads and all of that. And that's what people typically think of when you. But when he went a step farther and said polling places.
Yep.
That is where people got their ire up because they're like, look, you know, this is not a third world, fifth world situation. And it makes potentially for a dangerous situation to have to man those polls and women those polls with extra security because somebody is calling that out. How do you see it?
Well, what on earth would possess somebody? We have had for 219 years the envy of the world in terms of the orderly transfer of power in the United States.
Well, Mike Pence made this point.
It is, and the fact that he had to make it is a testament to what a absolute tire fire 2016 is that the running mate for a major party had to say, we promise no armed insurrection after the election. You say, holy crocono.
Well, Rudy Giuliani, also one of his top supporters, also ran with the same point, saying there are a few places, such as Philadelphia and Chicago, where illegal voting has occurred over the years. But Donald Trump pointing to a lot of other things where he is saying this is a rigged election and everybody is in it for Hillary Clinton. He was talking about Saturday Night Live. Watch this clip from Saturday Night.
Oh, God.
I need all my supporters to get out there and vote on Election Day. Mark your calendars, write it down. Here's the date. It's November 35th.
Number one, insurance companies can't deny you coverage because of a pre-existing condition. Number two, no lifetime limits, which, is a big deal if you have serious health problems. And number three,
what about all the women accusing you of sexual assault?
They need to shut the hell up.
All right, well, Donald Trump didn't think that was so funny. He immediately tweeted after this, watch Saturday Night Live hit job on me. Time to retire the boring and unfunny show. Alec Baldwin portrayal stinks. Media rigging election?
Rigged.
No, he's right in that the media is not in his favor. But here's the problem. He got so addicted to the unearned media during the primary campaign, and he realized that that's free, it's easy, it's cheap, and it's super fun. But as the media made a pivot in the general election, I think you can say by and large, toward Hillary Clinton and, certainly showing her in a more favorable light, that's when he had to create the narrative of his own. Now, I want to talk about a different kind of rigging because I do think that the system truly is rigged against, and I've said it before, third-party candidates. The Commission on Presidential Debates, that is a duopoly set up by this two-party system. There is a 15% threshold, which is completely arbitrary, that candidates have to meet in order to get on those all-important debate stages. That's the only place you now have a concentration of eyeballs, making the presidential debate so much more important, especially Wednesday night's debate, moderated by our own Chris Wallace.
I'm scared, so I'm not going to argue.
Okay. Well, we want to move on to this as well. Meantime, at least 9 women are now accusing Donald Trump of unwanted sexual advances. But the Republican nominee is fighting back.
These allegations have been, many of them already proven so false. We can't let them get away with this, folks. Total lies. And you've been seeing total lies. How about this crazy woman on the airplane? Hey, I mean, can anybody believe that one? How about this? After 15 minutes, we don't know each other. After 15 minutes, she said, well, that was too much. And I decided, 15 minutes? With the ladies in this place, it would be 1 second and it would be smack.
But Vice President Joe Biden slamming Trump, saying it's sick how he used his wealth and power to demean women.
His own words. I don't have to even go to the accusers. When a man says what he said, it's a textbook definition of sexual assault. It's a textbook definition. And the thing that makes it so believable that he engaged in that kind of activity is not just that he said it, but his sort of instinctive abuse of power.
Trump's running mate, however, says more evidence is going to come out to disprove the claims against his boss.
I know there's countervailing evidence that's coming out right now, and more information will probably come. But the American people are very, very troubled. Once again, here we are in an election of such enormous magnitude in the life of this nation. And once again, the media is piling on with unsubstantiated claims as the headlines, while they ignore an avalanche of hard evidence about corruption, pay-to-play, political favoritism emanating out of Hillary Clinton's years as Secretary of State.
So a bit of a different strategy even between Pence and Donald Trump. But Donald Trump, as you heard, still pushing back hard against his accusers. Is that strategy working for him?
No. And we saw they undertook at the last debate in St. Louis. So we can only imagine what's going to happen in the next debate. Chris Wallace is going to better have his headgear on as he goes out there. But the approach was, do not back down. Apology, yeah, sorry, and then attack. So they have stayed on the attack to try to destroy the credibility of these women. Unfortunately, Trump also included in there an attack on their looks. He said that they were not attractive enough for him to have assaulted. And he was trying to make a joke, but it goes to the fact that he's just giving, if Mike Pence is right and the media is colluding against Donald Trump.
Right.
Why help them out so much and give them so much raw material with which to work?
I mean, there's just over 3 weeks to go, Harris. I mean, is this going to continue to dominate the election conversation?
That's up to Donald Trump.
Right.
I think it's up to him to try to change the conversation, and he doesn't seem to show that he's willing to do that. I mean, I understand that he wants to come out strong and deny these charges. At every speech, he can do that, but you can pivot pretty quickly, too. And, you know, Mike Pence is right about that evidence. I mean, we've got such a dump over the weekend. It was hard to keep up with it all. I mean, I don't know how you guys spend your Sunday nights, but even working on a Sunday, it was hard to read 2,000 of anything.
Right.
Yeah.
You know? So he's right about the evidence there and what people should be looking at with Hillary Clinton. Donald Trump has got to show now, if he's got it, the discipline to change the conversation.
I was at a football game in South Bend, Indiana over the weekend, and people were walking up to me, recognizing from the show and saying, Donald Trump's got to get off the field. You know, I mean, like just not quit the race, but he's got to stop talking so that this media cycle can naturally turn to all these emails. And they're like, just shut your trap.
But but remember, in a campaign, and we see this every 4 years, we saw it definitely with John McCain in a big way. When you get down to the end and things aren't going the way you want them to go, you are likely to surround yourself with and take the advice of people who say, you keep doing what you're doing.
Sycophants.
You're great.
Yeah.
Absolutely. You get down to the concentrated core of supporters who, instead of saying, boss, I hate to be the one to tell you this, but you got to stop doing what you're doing, you end up surrounded by people who say,
but he's got those people.
beans.
He has Kellyanne Conway. He has these people. And I've asked her before, does he listen to you? And she says, well, yes, but at the end of the day, he makes his own decision. I think he listens to his kids.
But Kennedy, he also can look at the latest national polling and see that even since the release of that video and multiple accusers stepping forward, he's still only trailing her in that Washington Post ABC poll by 4 points.
Yeah, and no, it's interesting because it really doesn't make that much of a difference, but he has to shift the momentum in the opposite direction, and he has to get himself back on top. And the question is, does he really want to do that? And if so, does he have the fortitude to make it happen? And, you know, you have to wonder what that Wednesday night, that final debate is going to be like. I mean, will he go in there saying to himself, I'm going to reach out to independents, I'm going to make a logical case why my presidency will be better for this country, or will he go in there like a wounded animal who has nothing to lose, and will it be complete scorched earth? Either way, I think it's going to be wildly
entertaining. I get more scared every time you talk. Each time I'm more frightened. I'm more frightened because now we got wounded wild animals.
That's absolutely right.
I mean, my God.
But that's the landscape, my friend. I didn't invent the safari. I just put you in the Jeep and took you out there.
It's not just the fortitude to change the conversation. Now you're asking him to be more like a politician. Does he have the political skills to do it? I'm looking at CNN Battleground polls right now. Ohio, Trump leading by 4 points. North Carolina, Clinton leading by 3. Nevada, Clinton leading by 2. I mean, these are squeaky close still.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Now, Trump has been consistently good in Ohio. That has been a bright spot for him. It's something if Mitt Romney would have had those numbers in Ohio, it would have been a different 2012. So Trump is outperforming.
I don't know that he had them in Utah. I'm
kidding.
Please move on.
Poor Mitt Romney.
It was tough.
Oh, Mitt Romney.
It's tough out there.
It was
but
binders,
it was
this animal on his
the horse
car.
dancing. The issue for Trump is that he's underperforming Romney in places like North Carolina and Arizona and Georgia and even Texas. So the landscape is shifting, but you're right that in key states, Trump could reset this race if he showed up in a different way as a different person on Wednesday.
Chris Dyer, well, it is so fun to have you here. Thank you, sir. More from him coming up. New questions involving Hillary Clinton's emails. Just released FBI documents contain allegations of a quid pro quo backroom deal between a senior State Department official and FBI agents during the Hillary Clinton email investigation. Why critics say this looks like a cover-up at the highest levels of government. Plus, with just 2 days before the final debate, what we can expect from Donald Trump when he goes head-to-head with Hillary Clinton in Las Vegas, what his most recent attacks reveal about his strategy. And after the show, you can join our live chat by clicking on the Overtime tab at foxnews.com/outnumbered or go to facebook.com/outnumberedfnc. And of course, you can tweet us. And Chris Steyerwalt, unfiltered.
No.
Overtime. 10 minutes of it. Join us.
New questions today involving Hillary Clinton's emails. The FBI has released another set of documents related to the investigation into Clinton's email practices during her time as Secretary of State. The documents contain allegations of quid pro quo between a senior State Department official and the agency. The deal would go like this. In return for altering the classification of at least one email, the possibility of additional foreign opportunities for FBI agents was discussed. When pressed about these allegations on Fox News Sunday, Clinton's running mate, Tim Kaine, denied any involvement by Clinton or her campaign, although he did concede the accusations warrant a second look.
Absolutely not. I have no knowledge that that happened. Absolutely not. So you do see classification of information change for very legitimate reasons. So that would be something that you'd definitely have to look at.
The Bureau does not dispute there was a discussion about classification and FBI placements overseas, but it claims the two issues were not connected, saying in a statement, quote, the classification of the email was not changed and it remains classified today, although there was never a quid pro quo. These allegations were nonetheless referred to the appropriate officials for the review, end quote. All right, Chris, so for people who are just kind of looking up at their TV going, huh? What is the big talk from all of that? What's the headline?
So the headline here is I almost want to say, and I will say, desperate desire that you see on behalf of one of Hillary Clinton's closest advisors and insiders at the State Department to get the classification on this email changed because they knew that what she had said was not true. That when she said, I never received or sent any classified, it's like, nah, bro, that's not true. And so they're
if you
trying
help
to get
me
it fixed.
change what the email was marked, then you'll get a cushy job in some foreign country.
Well,
am I oversimplifying it?
No, it creates more room for the FBI agents who are already overseas, so they get nicer offices.
So the FBI wants slots. Everybody wants a slot at U.S. embassies overseas.
We do?
The State Department. Well, sure, if it was a good enough gig, like if it was like to Barbados and like cultural attaché, like I'm in.
I'm with you.
Right, but the reality is that the CIA, the FBI, all of these law enforcement, national security, and other, I suppose the National Oceanographic Administration does too. Everybody'd like an office or room overseas because that's where those are our offices. So this is the State Department saying, oh, first thing, how about reclassifying this email so it doesn't embarrass my boss? Number two, you know, I was just thinking about, you guys need more slots at the State Department, don't you? So I don't know that you can make the case, but I don't know you could make a legal case, but certainly there's a little dangling going on here.
But the big thing that Catherine Herridge uncovered, and she's been bringing to us every hour, is this idea that the FBI agent himself, who was on the phone, described it as a quid pro quo conversation. He says that it was this Undersecretary of State, Patrick Kennedy, who made it very clear that it was, in fact, and he used the words, the FBI agent, quid pro quo phone call. That's what it was. So when they go out and say, oh, just because they were in the same conversation, they weren't necessarily connected. Well, the guy on the other end of the phone said this was a straight up,
and
you give me this, I give you this.
Okay, he didn't want to end up
if we look kind of from 37,000 feet, Kennedy, what we're seeing here is a situation that would indicate how Mrs. Clinton would be if she were in the White House?
I mean
what is in it for the people who are watching the story?
But that's how they subtly operate. You know, it's just enough to not get caught. And you have people who are just far enough removed from Secretary Clinton herself that it's very easy to sway eyeballs away from what appears to be a very guilty interaction. But my question for Chris is, so if they change the classification on a single email, does that mean does that sort of set a precedent so you could change classification for a bunch of other emails that are very similarly classified? Because therefore, you know, she had so many thousands of emails that were already marked.
They change classifications on emails all the time. That's a thing that happens. Oh, this was classified this way. It really should have been this way. It's not really top secret. It's blah, 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 blah. You know, there is a whole... You would be appalled to see how many human beings are involved in the clerical paperwork aspect. You know, when they meet a lady.
I would be appalled because we have so much digital. Why is the government so slow in pushing paper?
I'm sure when they meet ladies in bars, they say that they're secret agent men. But what are they really doing? Is they're like, well, we're going to mark that C down to an I, and then we're going to move it over.
By the way, Mrs. Clinton has no idea what that C stands for.
All right, so fact. All right, so Congressman Jason Chaffetz, who's been briefed on this
these FBI interviews. To quote him exactly, this is a flashing red light of potential criminality. Obviously, we're not going to be able to deal with that aspect today, but we are going to be able to look at the political impact today. How does this affect Hillary Clinton? We can talk about this all day long, but does it have any impact 3 weeks out from Election Day?
Kennedy said it best. This is, again, reconfirming for the quadrillionth time. And it's also in the stuff that WikiLeaks says that her familiars sent during the run-up to this election, which is it's as close as you can get without going over the line. It's always rubbing it.
Well, does anybody know who turned off the internet for Julian Assange and WikiLeaks? It's just a question now that we're
Just
seeing all these
asking
dumps.
questions.
Moving on. New polls with very different conclusions on the impact Donald Trump's recent controversies are having. So what should we believe about it all?
With just 2 days left until the final presidential debate, Hillary Clinton is off the campaign trail doing prep sessions while Donald Trump attends rallies. This, as many are wondering whether he'll carry his scorched earth strategy into Wednesday night's showdown. This weekend, he slammed Hillary Clinton over the WikiLeaks dumps, her Wall Street speeches, Whitewater, and even suggested she may have taken performance-enhancing drugs before the last debate.
We should take a drug test prior, because I don't know what's going on with her. But at the beginning of her last debate, she was all pumped up at the beginning. And at the end, it was like, oh, take me down. She could barely reach her car. So I think we should take a drug test. Anyway, I'm willing to do it.
All right, so she's...
Yeah, so it's whatever. Yeah,
She's the Lance Armstrong of the Democratic Party, obviously spinning her blood.
What is the right performance-enhancing drug for a debate? What would you take? Like ginkgo biloba?
Yeah, what are the banned substances, by the way? I mean, where's the list of things you can't take? Because I hear they're all on asthma medication.
So seriously, though, she's spending 5 days in intense debate prep.
Is she?
Meanwhile, well,
What's she
we
doing?
were told her the first day of debate prep, she was at the Doral 5 hours straight on a mock debate
sure
stage.
that Hillary Rodham Clinton is being very diligent in her preparation because diligence is kind of her jam. But what is she really doing for 5 days?
Well, Donald Trump says she's resting.
For 5 days, she's saying, Donald, you go ahead and talk.
Yeah. Okay.
Is what she's saying. She said, you go ahead and talk. I'll see you in Las Vegas, and then we'll chat again.
And that's what he's been doing. He's been holding rallies all along the East Coast. Will this work? Should he be shutting down shop and prepping himself?
Yeah, I mean, just to throw everyone off a little bit, because I think everyone's expecting that he's going to filibuster until Vegas, which is always a fun thing to do, and it's a euphemism. But I think that Hillary Clinton, in her debate prep, is not only trying to prepare for Donald Trump and the blitz that perhaps might be coming for him, and who knows what we'll see 90 minutes before the debate. I also think that she's prepping for Chris Wallace. I honestly do.
She better.
Because she has not had questions like the kind that he is going to pose to both candidates.
She better pack a lunch. They both better, because I want to make clear they have not faced a challenge like this. Donald Trump remembers, they've both been interviewed by Chris Wallace. Donald Trump's been on a debate stage with Chris Wallace. But I want to tell you, this is the Kumite deathmatch stuff that he is bringing down.
Game on.
Game on. Be ready.
All right. So is he prepared for that? And is he going to use that scorched earth strategy?
Well, we saw in the last debate, I mean, he clearly can prepare when he wants to. And if I know from Kellyanne Conway that they will be doing some of that same kind of role-playing, more traditional type debate prep that we didn't see the second time, so he could be more prepared than he was then. But I still think that the onus is on Hillary Clinton not to blow it at this point and not to make a mistake. That's why I think you don't see her. Yes, she's watching Donald Trump somewhat set himself on fire with more stuff he says, but some of that is already baked in. I mean, he's talking to the people who love him in those crowds. It's not like he's, reaching out to independent voters and burning down houses with what he's saying. They've already kind of accepted. You look at some of the polling over the weekend and the percentage of people in one poll who said, does the tape with the sexual lewd comments about women matter all that much? 63% of women answered that poll no, because in terms of how they would vote. So some of it's baked in. The question for him is, when are you going to telegraph to the world that you are preparing? Yeah. When are you just going to let him know? Because he's got to.
I think that,
And I
mean,
believe
if you
he
look
is.
at the way the news cycle is going, back to your point of like why we don't see her right now, it's working great for her. I mean,
Right.
she's got
Keep
all
doing
this
what you're
bad
doing.
news
Right.
coming out on the emails. Nobody's really paying a lot of attention to it. He keeps talking. They keep focusing on that. So it's working for her. Why would she come out of the shadows? I do think she's preparing. I do think she's
I'm
looking
sure she
ahead
is.
to
I'm sure
Chris
she
Wallace
is.
and all those sort of things. But it is kind of amazing that we're saying that this debate is, again, a make or break for everyone. We never thought, I think, we'd be saying that about the third one.
She's practicing her shimmy.
I mean,
that little shimmy
he's
she
way
does.
behind,
Or the
but
lean.
it's still one of those situations where anything could
Real
happen.
quickly, you brought up the idea of independence and how they would play a role. A guy by the name of Evan McMullen was on Fox News yesterday.
Yeah.
And interesting, because I know Utah is his home state.
Yep.
But when you look at that state, he's getting 20%
Or better, yeah.
or better. He's on the ballot in 11 states. Some of them are swing states. I mean, the New York Times talked about the moonshot that it would
Right.
take for him to
Go
do
to the
anything.
House
But he can leave a divot out of somebody. He says
could
he's a
actually-
true conservative. He could hurt them both.
But he could actually be the only extra party candidate who wins an electoral vote.
Exactly.
You know, because Gary Johnson, he was in
Mexico.
striking distance in Utah.
And then he lost
You know,
Aleppo.
he's done well. Oh, Gary.
I don't think that was what.
No,
did
but
it.
seriously, I mean, they do play a role. They could cause
Sure.
some problems. So
Well,
we'll be
but
watching that.
he could win a few.
So Chris Stirewalt just eloquently sold the final showdown, but we have been telling you now it is coming up just 2 days from now. For the first time ever, a Fox News anchor will be moderating a general election presidential debate. Our friend and colleague, award-winning journalist Chris Wallace, widely regarded as one of the best questioners in the business, will be moderating the all-important final debate between Donald Trump and Hillary Clinton. It will be held this Wednesday, October 19th at 9 p.m. Eastern in Las Vegas. The best place to watch the first Fox-moderated debate is on the Fox News channel. All right, Donald Trump stepping up his campaigning over the weekend amid questions about the impact of recent controversies. Some new polls coming to very different conclusions on what is the takeaway from them, and are polls really reflecting the pulse of the people right now? We will discuss that next.
Growing questions about the impact of the accusations against Donald Trump are really having on the race. A Washington Post ABC News poll conducted after the release of that video in which he made lewd comments about women shows it's barely affecting voters, with Hillary Clinton up just 4 points, only a slight change from the last ABC Washington Post survey. But an NBC News Wall Street Journal poll shows Clinton up 11 points in a four-way race. Chris, how do you parse those? Because it's like she's ahead and she's way ahead.
Do you know what we like? We love the halftime report. Do you know why we love the
Yes,
halftime
sir.
report? Because I write it.
I love it.
And we're required to like it. But one of the things we like about it is the polling average that we put in there. So we throw out the garbage polls, we take the bad polls, and we throw those out. We don't use those. We just use the prime cuts of USDA choice.
It's like diving scores.
As Dana Perino calls it, she likes my Slim Jim analogy, we make a delicious smoked meat treat out of the polls.
You are just hungry because it's noon hour on the East Coast.
I'm hungry because I'm a fat American and I will eat all the time if you give me the chance. No,
I like the
this is the
Slim
truth.
Jim, though. I
I
will
love
Macho
a
Man
Slim
Randy
Jim.
Savage.
So the
debate.
breakdown back to the
Snap
polls.
into it. Back to the polls is, so yes, the Post poll says that it's 4. The Wall Street Journal poll says it's 11. Other polls say it's 7.
Right.
But, so they all agree that she's winning. And then if we take an average of the polls, it says that he's down 6 or 7 points. That's what the average of
Is that
polls
the
says.
real
But
politics?
the question
We
is,
don't
what
do
was
that
the
because
impact?
they put bad meat in their Slim Jim.
They do.
They do.
The question was, what was the impact of all the tapes coming
Weren't
out
good.
and the response and all that stuff? But it's not. I mean, he was already down by a lot.
So the contour of this election is clear. If we go back to the first week of May when the general election began, when Ted Cruz went kablooey,
your conscience.
the shape of the election has been the same. Donald Trump has trailed every day in the average of polls, in our average of polls, and he trails to this day. Is it 8 points? Is it 2 points? It's gone back and forth in this
All right, but
race.
national
that's not
polls
totally
are not
accurate,
where
'cause
this
it's
race
gone-
will be won. I mean,
True.
we look at electoral votes and electoral votes rather, and we look at battleground states to inform us about what's really going to happen. So we can navel gaze on the national polls,
can.
and each of these candidates
There's
can
Lynn.
say, "I'm up today, I'm down tomorrow."
Right.
But when you look, when I read earlier this hour, no, $150 million she has spent in negative ads at
Right.
last count, right?
Right.
This week she's silent. You guys think it's in part because she's waiting for him to set himself on fire. I think it's so she doesn't make mistakes. Whatever.
Both.
You've got him talking mostly, still soaking up the news cycles, and they're a couple of points apart in many of those battleground states. That's where it counts, right?
It is. He can be happy he's doing well in Ohio, but make no mistake, if the election
North Carolina,
if the election were held,
Nevada,
if the election
Hampshire.
concluded today, we used to say if the election were held today, but now the election lasts for a month. If the election concluded today, he would lose most of the swing states. So he needs the trajectory of this race to change. If you lose by 2 points or you lose by 12 points, you still lost.
All right. And
Sorry. I just was going to get your forecast or insight as far as voter turnout, because that seems to be really what's going to determine this election. Enthusiasm is pretty low historically for both candidates at this point in the game. What are we going to see?
On the vents on the ocean floor of the Atlantic, there are vents that pour out sulfuric acid essentially into the deep, deep part of the Atlantic,
which causes global warming.
No,
Chris.
Which at where the plates meet, and out of this furnace of sulfur, there are only certain kinds of bacteria that can persist. The only kind of life that can exist there. Those are the voters you're looking for now in this election. It's so gross.
Wow.
It's so acidic.
Well, I have a number to give you. 8%. That's how small the number of undecideds are. Most people know
it's that.
Yeah, right?
Because most of them are
That
lying.
is huge.
Right, and they're lying
That's huge.
too.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
You think they're lying?
They're lying. Half of them.
I think for Halloween, I'm going as an undecided voter because I think they only exist on Halloween. They don't exist.
You think there's a silent
I'm not kidding. That's a good
kind
idea,
of a
right?
slutty costume to go along with it, right?
Unsubscribe. I'm unsubscribing from this conversation.
Sexy undecided voter.
Nope.
I'm trick-or-treating with my children, friends. It will be a comfortable undecided voter outfit.
Right.
All right. More than half of Americans say the race between Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump is stressing them out. Which voters say they're the most and the least anxious, and whether this will all go away in 3 weeks?
Well, if the 2016 election is stressing you out, you're not alone. Poor Chris and everyone in the world. The race between Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump is now officially recognized as a significant source of stress for more than half of Americans. That's according to a survey by the American Psychological Association, and found voters 71 and older are golden Americans the most anxious about the election. 59% of them worried about the outcome. Millennials are next. They're so self-involved. 56% of them can't stop thinking about it. 50% of baby boomers say pretty much the same thing, while Gen Xers, yeah, bro. Those between 38 and 51, they report the lowest level of election-related stress at 45%. Harris, I think this is very interesting how this all breaks down along generational lines. So what is it about Gen Xers that we're really not too worried about the outcome of the election? Is it because we gave up hope in our childhood?
Yes. Well, I think we have one in the Senate seat today. No, I don't think so. I mean, I honestly think that this is one of those situations, and it's why people shouldn't talk about this at their jobs and in new relationships and so on and so forth. I think that the most analytical people on the planet are probably my generation. And you're just behind me, and you're a little bit more chill because you've seen that it got us nowhere in terms of our happiness value, right? We're always better when we turn that stress around and make it the word that it is, desserts.
Can I tell you guys something? The terrible lie that has infected this election is that America can't handle this. And I get really frustrated with both parties. I get really frustrated with both parties and both of these candidates. Trump talks about America dangling at the precipice, that if Hillary Clinton's elected, America is over. Hillary Clinton says if Donald Trump gets elected, there's going to be a nuclear war and life on the planet will be consumed in a ball of fire. Well, let me say, America is Americans. It is not its politics and its politicians.
Go, Chris.
These two people are not a reflection of the best of America. This process is not a reflection of the best of America. Americans are decent. Americans are kind. They are good-hearted. They are hardworking. They're patriotic. They're gracious.
Hear, hear.
They're great people. America is a great country. And all of this eliminationist talk that somehow this is it for America, chill out.
From both sides.
I don't
chill out.
I'm going to take a piece of the other side of that argument.
It's over?
Because, no. What is the other side?
counterpoint.
debt.
We're
I mean,
done.
I hate to be really boring here, but being
Number
the
one
financial
topic for Chris
person,
Wallace.
we are destroying our
debt
economy.
services.
We are passing tremendous debt onto our children.
I'm not saying there aren't things that need to be
turn around. We've been
addressed.
doing that for now so many administrations, Republican and Democrat. But in the past 8 years, we had no economic recovery. I mean, 1.7% growth. It is dire, Chris.
But it's
I
different.
take the opposite view of you.
No, you don't. You
Yeah,
don't
Chris
think.
Dyer. Well,
you
no.
don't think that America's over.
Yeah, these statements are not mutually
making
exclusive. We
real
have big
damage.
problems. We have to address. The candidates are not addressing them. But America is strong and gracious and beautiful because of the
worried
people
about
here.
the economy.
However, the problem, Sandra, is a lot of Americans use Facebook, and the American Psychological Association says stay off social media if you want to reduce your
People are
stress.
seriously stressed out. I mean, there are people unfriending people
Let me
and
just say-
dumping family
Let me just
members.
say for the record, this will be okay. This will be fine.
From the analytical generation, it absolutely will.
But so
It's
can
gonna
I
be
talk
cool.
about that 71 years
you do it in
and
5
older?
seconds, yes.
Oh, so did we get a wrap?
Yes.
Okay, I'll save that for Outnumbered Overtime.
And it is going to be fantastic.
Lordy
And
day.
so good news for you because we've got more Outnumbered in just a moment. Stay here.
I love a countdown. We're just a couple of days away now from a huge event, history making for our friend Chris Wallace, who will be the first Fox News Channel anchor to debate in a general election presidential debate. Debate twice in one sentence, because I love you so much, Chris. We can't wait for it. It is this Wednesday, October 19th at 9 p.m. Eastern. You know where you want to watch the best of the best among questioners and then great analysis right here on Fox News Channel, FNC for the cool kids. Speaking of cool, Chris Steyerwalt is going to stick with us for the overtime.
And
You ready for a little OT, baby?
Extra 90 slang. I was throwing like a word in there.
Oh,
It's
is that
gonna
what
be
that
awesome.
was?
Yeah, word.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So good of you to spend the hour with us.
An hour and
so
10
fun.
minutes. Yeah.
Yes,
That's
sir.
an extra
70
$50.
minutes, turns out.
That's an extra $50 right
You're
there.
going to be all right with that? Because we pop up on Facebook Live.
I've done Facebook Live. I was allowed to do fake Outnumbered before. I was allowed to come and do real